Welcome to my first impression review of Yonder, the Cloud Catcher Chronicles. Is quite the title. It's a game done by Prideful Sloth, and its description is as follows. Yonder is set in a massive island of Gemma, a lush frontier with 8 distinct environments ranging from sunny tropical beaches to frigid snow-capped summits. Each location has its own flora and fauna, along with changing seasons and a day-night cycle. Gemma, once a paradise, still maintains the appearance of one, yet an evil murk has enshrouded the land and its people in despair. By contributing to the island through talents like farming, crafting, cooking, fishing, and brewing, relationships can be built with the locals, who offer everything from resources to a new form as rewards. At the heart of Yonder is a game that develops a sense of discovery, wrapped in a familiar yet unique adventure. This is a game that I have been interested in for several months now. I've been following it very closely for 2 or 3 months, I think, so I definitely had it pre-ordered.
Yeah.
While it's only been out for a couple of days, I came out on the 18th. I have already put a lot of hours into this game, so I thought I would go ahead and give my first impression thoughts on the game. I will be talking about who I would and wouldn't recommend this game to, and then I'll probably talk about the things that were pros for me, some things I kind of wish I had known ahead of time, and note a couple of things that I kind of wish were different. First off, the people I would recommend it to are people who like exploring and people who enjoy completing collections. So for explorers, I think this game would be really good because the map may be small, but there is a lot to it. There are caves that can be explored, and as mentioned before, there are 8 distinct biomes you can go to. There's anything from beaches to mountains to like ice sheets to the bog of eternal stench I've even run into. So in that way there's a lot that is worth exploring and seeing. There's a lot of unique areas. Each of the towns are very special in their own way. You know, the place where they make clothes, there's a giant yarn ball. Things like that. They're very cool to see. The reason that collection completionists would enjoy this game is because there's a lot of collections to be completing. There are little teeny cats you can find all over. I think there's 55 cats that you can find, and even in my hours of playing, I have not found even close to that many. They're very hard to pick out. They're just like little tiny cats in like nooks of trees or up on rocks. The only way I ever notice them is they let out a meow when you get close. So, thank God they do that, or I would not have found one yet. There's also collections in the way of, there's fish, there's different types of fish, and you have to find them going through certain times of year, or day, or weather, or location. There are also constellations that are on rocks, and when you find them, what's neat about that is then you can see these constellations in the sky very clearly, I'd also add. There are also trees that you need to plant and murk to be cleared, and you can see all of this on like the health or progress of each biome that you're in. You can see that on the map. So there is definitely a lot to be collecting and completing, and it's very satisfying if that's something you're into. Now on to the maybe would recommend. People who enjoy crafting in games, anything from cooking or making clothes or building, those kinds of crafting, and the people who want to be farmers. So the reason why I give this a maybe for these people is the time frame in which you get to do these things in game. These are things that I personally enjoy quite a bit, and it seemed like they would be a pretty big part in the game. But I find that they are more of a late game aspect of the game, in that to be able to start crafting, you need to go to each of these biomes and find the town and join a guild there, complete a quest before you can craft stuff in that area of expertise. So to be able to cook, you need to go find that city, join the cook or the chef guild before you can cook any kind of food. And there's quite a few different types of crafting specialties, as mentioned in like the introduction and everything. And to even start building stuff on your farm, you need to have gone and found certain aspects of these crafting areas. For me personally, because these were aspects that I were very interested in, I felt sort of rushed to get to these cities to complete these tasks so that I could start crafting, and even then I was surprised at how much it takes to craft. I think that's kind of a pro opposed to a con. I like that something like bread isn't just flour and water. It's flour, water, oil, and you need tools to craft these things. So I do enjoy it, but like I said, I did feel like I need to rush to find these places so that I could start the game, but if you go in knowing that, it makes it easier to handle. There are two groups of people that I would not recommend this game to. Anyone looking for action, this game is not for you. And anyone who is looking for an in-depth or long plot or main story or quest, because neither of these things will be satisfied with this game. As for the action, there you don't have any kinds of weapons, no one in any way dies, and for the quest, the main story, I was able to guess it pretty early in the game. It kind of hints at it on the way, so you know it's kind of to be expected. But I don't think that the main quest was the point of this game. I think it was there, but they know it's not main point, because when you finish the main quest, you get an achievement on the PlayStation that says that was easy. So they acknowledge that it's not a majority of the game, so if that's something you're interested in, just be aware that's how this game is going to be. So now that you've made it to this point, you've probably decided that you are interested, or you're maybe interested in this game. So here are some of the things that I did enjoy about this game. First off, it is a very beautiful game. All of the different biomes are executed very well, they're very unique and beautiful, and I enjoy the style of it. It's different, but I think it's done well. It's also a very calm game, like, with the beautiful graphics and the lovely music. It's just a very pleasant experience. There is, as I mentioned before, no death involved, whether it's you or any other creatures that you encounter. The closest thing you have to dying in this game is if you go out into the water too deep, your screen will fade to black, you will spawn back at the closest safe land. If you jump from somewhere really high up, you just pull out an umbrella and then slowly drift to the ground, so you can't take any kind of fall damage, nothing like that. So overall, it's just a very calm game. There's no reason to be anxious in it, and it's lovely. Something else that I really enjoyed about this game was the fishing, kind of surprisingly. I don't know, a lot of games have fishing and they have their own unique mechanic for it. It always seems like almost like a little mini game, and I just really enjoy how the fishing in this one is done. You throw your bobber out and then you navigate it in front of a fish, and you can avoid the small ones to try to get to a big one, and then you have to tug it just right to make sure your fish doesn't get away. So I don't know, it's not usually something I enjoy in games. I usually find them to be quite the task, but I actually really enjoy it in this game, so that's a huge bonus for me. I also enjoy how easily you can change your character. At one point, changed what my character was wearing mid-air, floating down from a mountain. Like, decided I don't want to be in my winter gear anymore, so on the flight down, I changed her hair color, I changed her outfit, and we were good. Like, it's very simple. There are chests around that give you a variety of items from like clothing to colored shampoos for dyeing your hair. You can also purchase clothing from shops, and you use these little tokens that you can get from completing quests or in boxes you smash. Very simple, I love it. Another thing that I really enjoyed is something called the geocache, and I've never really seen anything quite like it in other games that I can think of at least. And what it is you put down this box, you put an item in it, and then you upload it, and it will appear in that location on a random person's game. And you can find these things all over the place. One of them I found next to a quest giver, and it happened to have the item that quest giver needed. And so I didn't have to go across the map to get that item because somebody was kind enough to put in one right there. So it's really cool seeing what people are willing to share and where they decide to share them. I also really enjoy the compass in this game. You have a map, but you also have this thing that you pop out and you could scroll through your quests and it will point directly to the location of your quest. And for some reason, just the opening and closing of it, I find very satisfying. I think it's how abrupt it is. So I just like pulling out to look for my quests, even if I don't really need to know where they are, because I just like seeing it. The shops in this game are a little unique, in that in most games you can go to any shopkeep, you sell the item, it'll be the same price wherever you go, what you buy is the same price wherever you go. Their inventory will always be the same, but none of that's the case in this game, from my understanding. It seems that their inventory will fluctuate, so sometimes they'll have a ton of stuff to sell, sometimes they don't. Sometimes I've even gone to merchants and they've had nothing in their inventory, and where you sell stuff changes how much you are going to get for what you're selling. Or, I guess it's not selling, because there's no coin or currency involved, it's all trading, which is very nice. But if you go to somewhere that sells nails, they will pay very little for your nails, you know. If you go to somewhere that doesn't have any nails, they're much more likely to pay more for it than somebody who's crafting it themselves. And the reverse works as well. If you go to someone who has general merchandise, it'll be more expensive than somebody who builds copious amounts of nails. One of the last things that I really enjoyed is that you get a farm per biome that's big enough, it seems, or that where it's the most conducive. I feel like in most games they would have a default setup for the farm, it'd have a default building in it, and what you'd expect to see in there is default, and just plopped down in every biome. But in this game, the buildings all try to match like the surrounding towns and the surrounding environment. The layout's always a little different, and it kind of makes it exciting because you don't know what you're going to get when you open up and build up your farm. You don't know how it's going to be sitting or how the buildings are going to look, so it adds a nice little experience every time you open up a new farm. As for things I wish I had known, one, that there is going to be a lot of traveling on foot. Eventually you can open up these statues that will give you the ability to, like, fast travel in essence between the biomes, but even then these statues are not always near convenient locations. They're not always next to a town or one of your farms. They might be on the exact opposite of the island of where you want to be going. So there's definitely a lot of walking around. I ended up kind of making it a goal of mine to go get all of these statues, even if I had to look online to find out where they were, because I thought it would make my experience nicer if I didn't have to run across the map all the time. Mostly because I'm very scatterbrained, and so it's like I go most of the way to a quest, realize I need something, and then I have to run all the way back. Or even thinking about the fact that what I need is across the map might deter me from working on the quest at the time. So for me personally, going and getting all of those statues set up and completing their quests so that they're open was a high priority, and I think it's made my experience a bit better. The other thing I wish I'd known, as I mentioned before, that the crafting and the farming is a little later game, just because you have to go through that process of opening the crafting abilities. I also wish I'd realized that some of the materials you cannot craft yourself. That's not really a problem, it's just not something I'm used to, and so when I first got open, say, the carpentry, I wanted to make a building for my farm, but I realized there was an ingredient I didn't have, I'd never found, I didn't know how to craft it. So my assumption was there was a different crafting type that would cover that item. So like it was like glue. So I assumed that one of the other crafting categories would have the ability to make glue. So I dedicated myself to finding all of these towns and unlocking them. Whereas in reality, I just needed to go buy it. There's several things that there's no way I'll ever be able to make them. You know, I can't make planks myself. I have to take the wood to a person to have that crafted. And I wouldn't have put off my farm as long as I did had I realized that some of the stuff I just have to go buy. Another thing I wish I had been aware of ahead of time was that there's not a ton of variety in the creatures. For some reason, I don't know if it was the way I was looking at what they were coming out with, but I assumed that the critters around the island were going to have a pretty big part in the game. And they're adorable, and I appreciate the things that they come out with, but I guess I expected there to be more variety, especially when I got onto the map and it says something like more creature sightings if you get this area healthy enough, and I guess I thought that would mean a variety of creatures would show up opposed to just being more of the creatures that are already there. As there is, I think there's 9 total creatures, and that's it on the entire island and all of the biomes. There's 9 creatures. When I opened up the menu and I saw it had like grayed out spots to indicate, you know, all of the creatures, I was hopeful that meant like in the biome I was in, but no, it means that there's only 9 creatures that you can find and tame, I guess. Find and bring to your farm and have follow you around when you adventure. So I don't know how I got the idea that there would be more, but if it's something you also think, just be aware there's only 9 creatures out there. For the last bit, I thought I'd mention 2 things that I kind of wish were a little different than they are currently. The first being, you can hire these farm hands to come to your farm, and they'll help keep it clean and help take care of your animals, which is awesome. I love that they do that so you don't have to come in and clean up animal poo all the time. But the problem was I was finding people that I really liked the look of, or that I just liked in general, and sending them to my farm, but now I can't ever talk to them again. They just became a little, like, smiley face up in the corner of my menu when I'm in my farm, and that's it. I'll never see those people again unless I replace them. And to be able to get somebody to come join as a farmhand, you have to give them certain number of food items. Like if you give them a raw fish, it only increases at 1%, whereas if you give them cooked fish, it might be 10%. So you have to give them a lot of materials to get them to join as your farmhand. And if you ever want to see or talk to this person again, you have to replace them, but then you'd have to go through giving them all those materials again to get them back into your farm. I really wish you could see them on your farm, like, even if they just stood next to the building that, like, the farmhouse, and just stood there. That'd make me happy to be able to see them every time I came into my town, maybe talk to them. They could be useful in the way that they'll tell you, you know, this shop is currently overstocked, and so they're really looking to sell. Having those people in my farms would be really nice. I just want to see them. I do love the mechanic that they're there, but I wish they were physically in my farm. The only other thing that I really have a problem with is there's currently no way to organize your backpack or your chest, at least not in a quick and conducive way. In the backpack, you are able to tab through and look at specific types of items, you know, stuff related to the wood, but every time you open your backpack, everything's just a mess, just tossed in there, clothing, all of these items all together. And the only way you can organize it in its default state is to like dump everything into a chest at your farm and then pick everything up in the order you want it to be in your backpack. And in the chests, It looks like you're supposed to be able to sort in the same way as the backpack, so you could look at all of the stuff that's wood. But right now, it's just the words kind of flip through and nothing happens. I imagine that's currently a glitch more than a missing feature. But I do wish that either we had a button that would group like materials so all of the clothes would be together and all of that, or they would give us a tabbing system within our backpack, kind of similar to the one that they have in the creation crafting area. You have the R1, L1 goes through the upper tabs, and then the craftings, and the L2, R2 sub tabs. So I kind of wish I had either that or a like quick organization button in my backpack. So that was it for my initial review of this game. I'm going to continue playing it, and so it'll be in my last month I played these games video that comes out at the beginning of next month. So if you want to see my thoughts on kind of the long term and those kinds of things, you'll have to check out that video when it comes out. I also want to take a moment to thank both the studio and the people at Sony who worked on the PlayStation pre-order glitch that stopped us from being able to play our game. I know there was a lot of people working on that for many hours, so I really appreciate all the work that was put into that. And I'm also really happy to see that everyone who was contacting Prideful Sloth was very nice, very polite, very understanding and supportive. It was refreshing to see. If this is a game that you are interested in, I think it is something you should definitely check out, especially because currently it's only $20 US. It's a really low price for a very in-depth game, I think. Let me know if this is a game that you are interested in, or if you've been playing it down in the comments below. And until next time, I hope you have a wonderful day.